leadership and building connections, building rapport. And what does that look like? What does that require? What does leadership actually look like and mean? Okay, it's doing this again. Hold on 1 second.
What does that require? What does leadership act look like and mean? Okay, it's doing this again. Hold on.
I don't know where it's coming from. I keep closing those out and it keeps doing that. So anyway, leadership, what does that look like? How do you build the connection? How do you build that rapport? You can probably see I'm not in my normal place where we're doing this. I am on the road working and meeting with some amazing men and women today and tomorrow, and have a lot that's going on. And I'm super excited about being where I am. Don't you like the little sign behind me? Hello, sunshine. Isn't that cute? So anyway, leadership. Leadership is not about just leading people. Leadership is about influencing people. And the only way that you get to influence someone is by truly connecting with them. Okay. So yes, there's a lot of influencers out there on social media. There's a lot of people who talk about building connection. And in fact, the event where I am, one of the things that we're doing is talking about networking, building connections, and that sort of thing. So it's pretty apropos that today is the day that we're talking about this. So when I speak to this whole thing of leadership and what it takes to build leadership, to build true leadership, and to build connections with people, I start with connection. All right. So there's 3 points I want to share with you. Connection. I have an example of a guy who was a Green Beret. He went in and was in Afghanistan and went in and built a relationship with one of the local tribes and was able to do incredible work. But his connection was so deep with the tribal leader that the tribal leader actually adopted him as a son. I don't think you can talk more about building connection than that. It's an amazing story. There's a lot more to it. It's a really cool story. If you want to know more, you can send me a DM and I'll be happy to share who it is. The second piece of building that connection, though, is perfect imperfection. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Perfect imperfection. Embracing your imperfections, being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be real, to be authentic. And I believe that one can be authentic without being vulnerable. Now, vulnerability isn't something that, oftentimes people think of vulnerability as a weakness. It is not a weakness. It is absolutely a strength. In fact, there's a quote, oh gosh, his name is escaping me. Sigmund Freud. He has a quote that says, vulnerability is where your strength is found. Okay, so pretty cool. So embracing your perfect imperfection. All right. Now, how do you do that? The third point, all right, the first one was connection, perfect imperfection. And the third is resurrection that I like to refer to. So resurrection, what am I talking about? I am talking about resurrecting stories that you can use to connect with your audience, whomever your audience is, whether you're standing on stage and speaking or whether you are on, a broadcast like this, or whether you are speaking in an office environment or a sales environment or whatever. What are the stories that you can share that make the deepest connection with your audience? Okay. Sheryl Sandberg talks about leadership in a different way. I have a quote from her. Her quote is, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. Okay. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So it's along the same lines, right? You're wanting to build that connection that's on a deeper level, influencing people in a way that allows them to step into their leadership so that they are there and in their leadership, regardless of what's going on. So What's next? What do we talk about? The common challenges. Let's get into the common challenges. So when you look at the common challenges of whether it is teams or families or businesses or any of those scenarios, the common challenges of teams are, I'm going to read this list to you. And if you're on the mailing list, then I'm going to send these to you. But there's lack of trust, unproductive conflict, holding back information, right? Low engagement, not aligned, lack of cohesion and collaboration, lack of honesty and transparency, unwillingness to learn and grow. All right, so those are the common challenges, but how do you overcome those challenges? The great thing is when I'm doing this workshop in different companies and organizations, again, this is another one that can be an all-day workshop. It's actually very interactive because I want you really digging into this. And so while we're going through this today, I want you to start thinking about where can you take what we're talking about today and start using it right away. Okay. So here are some of the things that you can use to overcome these challenges. When it comes to lack of trust, obviously there's that whole piece of building the connection, right? Connection, perfect imperfection, and resurrection. So getting to know people, learn what other people care about. And this is important. Remember, we've talked many times this week about what is the meaning or what is the story that you are giving to something. Okay. So you get to really think about what is that meaning that you're giving to a particular scenario, to a particular person. And what if you could always start by assuming positive intention? What a difference that might make for you. Okay. Then when it comes to unproductive conflict is healthy if it's around an issue, not a person. So yesterday we were talking about using I language versus you language, right? And it's that same thing. Don't make it about the individual. Make it about whatever the issue is, whatever the situation is. Speak to the situation, use I language. I feel, I'm experiencing, etc. This situation is rather than you are, right? So, then, active listening to understand rather than replying. Okay. Holding back information. Now, historically, management teams and C-level have done a great job of holding back information. And what we have found over time, what studies have found, is that when they are much more proactive at sharing information, then, that builds loyalty, that builds trust. So, being able to share what you know with your team when you know it. Now, yes, there are times when you absolutely can't share it because there are legalities and other things involved. And share what you can. Share what you can when you can, as quickly as you can, as openly and honestly and authentically as you can, right? Low engagement, not involving others in decision-making. Now, involving others in decision-making doesn't mean just asking them for their opinion and then never using it, right? Asking them for engagement on decision-making means that you do some collaboration, you do some brainstorming together, and no idea is a bad idea. Have them throw out anything so that you're getting some of that additional engagement, right? Not aligned. We've talked already this week about having clarity of goals and vision. So the not being aligned happens when we haven't been really clear and we start acting in what we may think as the leader, what we may think within our mind is the right direction, but we haven't been clear to our people, whether it's family again or team. So, making sure that we've got an agreement on what success looks like. And what does it look like to actually have that clarity and have that direction so that everybody is headed the same way. Okay. Lack of cohesion and collaboration. How do you get that working together to put plans of action in place? Seek out others' opinions. A lot of these are overlapping, right? Sharing progress and celebrating wins together. Now, remember yesterday I talked about that humor and fun activities are crucial. This is a place where that comes in. I know I keep saying that every day it builds and all of these interact together. And if you were on the email that came out earlier today, you saw that, these skills all build on top of each other. And today we're talking about leadership. We're also talking about building connection and building rapport. Those three work very closely together. And all of these skills that we're talking about each day build on top of each other. It's not that one is more important than the other. These are all very crucial to what has historically been called soft skills and what now we're referring to as power skills. Remember, I said on day one that companies are actually hiring for these skills now rather than the technical skills. And that's why they're starting to call them power skills. Because if someone comes to a place of employment or to a job already having these skills in place, then they can learn the technical skills and they're going to go about it in a way that is building rapport, building team, building trust, building relationships, both internally and externally within the company. So the lack of honesty and transparency, okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. We've already touched on the transparency piece. Share what you know, what you can, share what you know when you can, as soon as you can. And then being transparent, right? If there's something that's going on, share that. And that allows your team to do the same thing. When you share openly, and I'm not talking about sharing dirty laundry. I'm not talking about those kinds of things. Okay. That's not what I'm saying when I talk about being vulnerable or being open or being transparent, right? There are lines to be drawn. Only certain people have earned the right to hear certain things. Okay. When it comes to the vulnerability aspect. And you can still be vulnerable by sharing at a certain level. Okay. All right. Unwillingness to learn and grow. So have an open mind for learning. How often have you ever been a part of a team where the top echelon is not open to the growth, but yet they are wanting all of their team, everyone below them, to go through all of these trainings, but they're not backing it up? You, as today's leader, get to shift that. Okay. You get to shift that, because if you're not embracing it, if you're not embracing the change, if you're not embracing the growth, if you're not embracing the training that you want your people to go through, they're not going to embrace it either. They may attend because it's mandatory, but they're not going to make it a way of life. Okay. So you get to be the first one to embrace it. All right. So those are some of the common challenges. I want to get into what traditional team leadership looks like versus what the new leadership looks like. Okay. And some of these I'm going to refer to my phone again. Some of these, it's almost laughable that we used to operate in this manner. Leaders determine and plan the work. Yeah. Jobs are narrowly defined. Cross-training viewed as inefficient. Most information is management property. Most information is freely shared at all. That's on the new. Training focuses on technical issues. Risk-taking is discouraged and punished. People work alone. Rewards are based on individual performance. Leaders determine best methods. Now, in an environment today, do those work? No. Are there times when a leader has to step in and do some of these things? Absolutely. And when we are operating from any of these consistently, then you don't allow for the collaboration. You don't allow for the rapport building. You don't allow for the connections to be built and the camaraderie among the people that are part of whatever this process is, right? So again, this can be in family, this can be in work, this can be in, if you own a business and you are building a team, or if you are in a large corporation and you have a department, keep in mind, here are the new ways to approach leadership. Leaders and the members jointly determine and plan the work. Now, obviously, there are goals that are set at a higher echelon, and then everybody gets to work together to meet those goals, to achieve those goals, to have success at attaining the vision, right? Broad skills and knowledge today, there are very few places where having this completely narrow focus is efficient in today's environment. It's much better to have, yes, you can niche in, if you're going to be doing brain surgery, then yes, absolutely narrow in. However, if you're doing sales and marketing, it's great to be able to have skills across in a broad arraignment of skills. And then cross training is the norm. So, yep, absolutely. Most information is freely shared at all levels. What if that were the case? How would people respond? How much more loyalty would you have? If people know that they are going to be spoken to as someone who counts, if people know that they are going to be brought in as a trusted member of the team, how much loyalty does that build? Yeah, we don't have loyalty today because we don't do these things. What if we start doing these things? What if we start allowing our people to be part of the decision process? What if we start allowing people to be part of the better understanding what's happening behind the scenes, right? Continuous learning. You guys, our world is an environment of continuous learning. Yesterday, I talked about status quo, or maybe it's just, I can't remember. Earlier this week, I talked about status quo. Nothing is status quo. Status quo is stagnation. You're either growing or you're dying. So having that ability to continuously learn, supporting continuous growth, it's key to having your team know that you have their back. Okay. Measured risk taking is encouraged and supported. Used to, like I said, risk taking was frowned upon. And yet, everything we do in life has some element of risk to it. What if we reward some of that risk taking? Again, measured risk taking, right? Not just going out and being crazy and, and the saying, what is it? It's better to ask forgiveness than ask permission. Not saying go that far, right? And what if we do allow some risk taking? Okay. That helps people think outside the box. That allows people to continue to grow. That allows for new ideas and concepts to come up. Everyone being empowered to continuously improve methods and processes. Every method and process is not ideal. So what if you have a team member who is like, there's a better way to do this? What if you give them the space to work on that better way, as opposed to saying, nope, this is how we've always done it? I still to this day hear so many situations when I'm working with organizations where it's like, this is just how we've always done it. Great. Then what a perfect opportunity to make some shifts. What a perfect opportunity to make some shifts. If this is how you've always done it, what do we get to do to change it up? because I bet there's a better way. Bet there's a better way. What are those better ways? Right? Let's talk about the stages of relationship building. Now, these are, I can't remember the guy's name who developed this or the organization that developed this. Speaking about it from a business aspect. And as I talk through these stages, I want you to think about in all relationships, whether they are personal relationships or professional relationships of any kind, you really go through these various stages. And once you know what stage you're in, then there are certain things that you get to do during that stage. So let's dig into this. There's 4 stages. Forming, all right, the forming stage. This is where you have everyone is new, everyone, or, maybe you're in a new relationship, maybe you're on a new team, maybe a new team is being formed. Everybody's getting to know each other, right? It's just the very beginning. Everybody's happy or excited, or maybe everybody's really upset because they've been thrown into something. So in the forming stage, what do you get to do? Get to know each other, clarify the purpose and expectations, and develop trust. Okay. As the leader, you get to make sure that those things are happening. And then in the second stage, the storming stage, you're identifying norms. You are brainstorming on different ways of being, different ways of doing things. You are continuing to get to know each other. You are clarifying purpose and expectations, right? I used to do this thing years ago, long time ago. I worked for AT&T, and we did something with our large clients called mutual expectations setting. And it would be, a several hour process. And we would go in and truly set mutual expectations. What would be most effective? What would be most efficient? What were the expectations in each of those areas? And it was a process that we signed off on. What if we took the time to do that with people in our lives? What if we set mutual expectations? What if we did that so that we could then operate from those mutual expectations? It's a change maker. Promise you, huge change maker. It's something that I learned early on in my career, and I still use that process to this day. Setting mutual expectations. It's a powerful process. Powerful, powerful process. And again, it's not something that you do just within a team. You can do this with clients as well. You can do this with your significant other, with your kids, etc. And then developing trust, ongoing development of trust, right? And from the team side, you're identifying resources, etc. During the norming process, during the norming stage. Now the team's been working together for a bit. Okay. Things have kind of settled in, aren't a lot of changes going on. Things are just kind of flowing. You've identified similarities. You've established a base level of expectations. You've agreed on common goals and purpose. And as the leader, you continue to clarify purpose and expectations. You continue to build that team rapport. You continue to develop the trust so that the team works together. Then you get into performing. All right. Now you are a high performance team. You are zooming. You have that alignment on your goals, and everything is just clicking along because now you guys know each other. You can finish each other's sentences. You have the trust built. You're focused on the same goals and vision and direction and expectations, and everything is clicking along. And then what happens? Somebody quits. Someone new is brought in. Some new regulation happens. And it starts all over again. Usually at this point, when someone new is brought in or a few someone news are brought in, then you go back to storming because the forming piece has already taken place, right? but the storming, getting to know each other, the, brainstorming, the throwing out ideas, the kind of butting heads quite a bit, that phase is usually where it starts again. All right. So was it yesterday that we were talking about the cycles of grief and the cycles of building, and how anytime there are changes, you go through the Kubler-Ross cycle of, disbelief and depression, et cetera, acceptance, and onward. You have those same things happening in this forming, storming, norming, and performing environment. You still have a lot of the emotions that are involved in each stage. So again, these layer on top of each other. And when you know which stage you're in as a team, you can then work toward making sure that everybody's on the same page. You better understand what's happening in the dynamics of the team. Okay. So remember that: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Performing, like I said, is when things are just zooming along, just going like hotcakes. It's going great. So keep those in mind when you are looking at the stages of the relationship development. Okay. Now, let's talk about a few relationship tips for all of you leaders out there. Okay. These are going to sound simple, and yet we're human. Okay. We're human. And we all are fallible. We all have emotions. We all have things that are going on in various aspects of our lives that, while these tips sound basic, they can get quite convoluted when life happens. So keep that in mind as I go through these. Yes, they sound simple. They're not always easy. And the first of the tips is to be fair. Now, we always have, when we're looking at people that are around us that we've built relationships with, that are part of a team, maybe it's a team that we've inherited, maybe it's a team that we've built, and the being fair, there are going to be people on the team that we get along with better than others. That's just human nature. Okay. Remember when we were talking about the personality assessments and the high D's or the high I's or the high S's or the high C's or the low whatever, and how each of those interact? When you have someone who's a high D being fair to a low S, there's going to have to be some meeting in the middle. Okay. Because a high high D interacting with a high S, not a low S. A high D and a low S would be, they would be able to get along pretty well, probably, because they'd be more like me. But when you look at a high D interacting with a high S, you get to style flex so that you can meet that person where they are. And being fair to that person is going to look very different than being fair to another high D. Another high D, I'm a high D from the DISC assessment. As another high D, I can go up and I can give bullet points and just blurt stuff out, and they don't think anything of it. They don't think anything of it. If I do that with someone who is a high S, they are going to feel like I am railroading them, that I am running completely over them, that I am aggressive. And I can speak from personal experience. I've done that before, not intentionally. I've done that before, though. Now that I know that that can be an issue, I know to back off and to work more closely with people and learn more about their operating mode so that I can meet them where they are, so that I can treat them fairly in a way that they appreciate. They talk about the golden rule, do unto others as you would like to have done. I like to preach to the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would like to have done. Okay? Because then you're meeting them where they are. I know that takes more work. I get that. And it's the same thing with the 5 love languages. When you're how many of you have ever done the 5 love languages? Have you read the book? Have you done the quiz? It's a great quiz to do. You can use the 5 love languages in the work environment as well. It will just look a little different. I often do workshops around this and incorporate this into a business environment. But, the 5 love languages, if you are a person who touch is something that is a high love language and another person is acts of service is their love language, guess what? You're not going to be speaking the same language. So if mine is touch and I come up to a person who is gifts, acts of service, and all I do is give them a hug, they're not going to feel as if their needs are being met. However, if I go in and I offer to file something for them or wash their car or buy groceries or whatever, right? I mean, there's a million different things that one can do as an act of service. If I go in and I offer something like that, they are going to feel heard, seen, loved, right? So being fair is going to look different based on the individual who's sitting across the table from you or sitting beside you. All right, don't hold back. Don't hold back. Clearly define and manage expectations. Provide honest and corrective feedback that is timely and consistently to everyone. Now, feedback often in a corporate environment is done like once a year or twice a year. That doesn't cut it anymore. How can you give consistent feedback in little bites and bits along the way? Not just an annual review or a biannual review. How do you get to have those conversations and give that feedback regularly, openly, right? Not offending them, but doing it in a way that builds that trust, builds that connection, builds that rapport, builds that influence that we started off today with. Be authentic and bold. Be you. Be you. So often we feel like we have to put on this mask and operate as if. Be bold and be you. Be authentic. Be vulnerable. Okay? Be yourself. Play to your own strengths. Hold team members accountable. Don't accept excuses and call people out when they aren't hitting the mark. Yeah, we get to call people out and we get to do it in a way that they can receive. Remember that whole D versus I versus S versus C thing, or Myers-Briggs, whatever personality assessment you're speaking to. Do it in a way that that person can actually receive it from a beneficial standpoint, right? It's not about calling people out just to call people out. One of the things that drives me nuts is when people say, well, I'm just brutally honest. No, you're just rude. You're not just brutally honest, you're rude. You don't have to be brutally honest. You can be honest without being brutally honest, okay? That's a power play to be brutally honest. That's a way to put up a wall. That's a way to shut others down. You can be honest, though. All right. And lastly, practice professionalism. What the heck does that mean? Manage your emotions? Yes. And don't be a robot. Okay? So it's not about, yes, keep emotions in check. Don't lose your ish if you're in the middle of, a really bad situation. If you're about to lose your ish, then you get to exit left, regroup, and then come back. Okay? So maintain a professional demeanor, especially when under pressure. All right. So leadership, it looks different based on what your team is made of, what your goals are, and there are common components to all of it. There's the connection piece, there's the influence piece, there's the rapport building piece. So again, leadership is not just about leading people. It is about influencing them. And in order to influence them, you must connect with them. All right, you guys. This weekend, I will be popping in to do a little bit of Q&A. Some of you have already sent some questions to me, so I will start with those and we will go from there. Over the weekend, it will be short and sweet, and I will see you coming up for the Q&A sessions, and then we will hop right back in on Monday to more of the power skills. Thank you so much for joining live today, for those of you who are live, and thank you to those of you who are watching the replay. And again, if there are any questions that you have, feel free to send me a message. And I would love, yesterday I mentioned doing consultation calls. That is still on the table. If you are interested in having a consult call, it's about 30 minutes, and it's really just helping you decide what is your next best step. Again, it's not a sales call. This is for you to be able to make your best next step in whatever role it is that you are about to step into or have already stepped into and wanting to up level. Okay. So I am honest and very forthright on these calls, and we will come up with a solution for you and the best fit for you, and help you figure out what your best plan is. All right, you guys, if you're interested in that, you can send me a DM or you can put it in the comments and we will get you that link to get scheduled. And I look forward to seeing you all over the weekend and then again on Monday. If I don't see you over the weekend, have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks, everybody.